Evening. Um, this is a little short titty. I just got out of a conversation with somebody who was questioning, and I just want to kind of explain it. They said, how is it possible for a person with, very limited education? Let's assume they mean nothing past high school, or even maybe they never even got their GED. A person with that kind of education, limited education, never worked in a skilled trade, and has severe impairments. His question was, there's no way that person could hold a job. And they're looking at it the wrong way in order to have an understanding of how a person like that can be denied. So I gave the example of someone I know who was missing an arm, so it's amputee, and he works full-time in a job that is readily available in substantial numbers. It is light, which means can be expected to be on his feet at least 6 hours of an 8-hour day, or up to 6 hours of an 8-hour day. It obviously doesn't require 2 arms. And what was the other thing? It's considered an unskilled job. Unskilled jobs are those that take less than 30 days to be trained to do. And then you could do it at least, say, average. That's the definitions I've heard vocational experts use. So there are a ton of unskilled jobs out there, and there are a ton of unskilled jobs that don't require bilateral manual dexterity. Now, keep in mind, some people with an amputated arm might have a prosthetic, or might not, but one missing arm doesn't actually eliminate all jobs. So I pointed out that having an arm amputated is a severe impairment. No doubt, right? Does anybody disagree? Losing a limb, an upper extremity limb, is a severe impairment. And it eliminates a ton of jobs. But there are over 12,000 ostensibly in the big bowl of occupations we have to carve out and prove that you can do none. So when you talk about severe impairments, and you have to have one or more, right? The severe doesn't have to be disabling entirely, but it limits certain work tasks. When we say limit them, it doesn't have to eliminate the ability to do them at all. It limits them. It could mean you can't do it for 8 hours, but you could do it for 2. Or it could mean you can't lift that amount of weight, 50 pounds. You can only do 30 or 10. You couldn't be on your feet for 6 hours, but you could maybe do it for 4 or maybe for 2. And there are plenty of jobs that don't require being on your feet more than 2, right? So when I say it's a little more complicated than those just flat out, how can a person with severe impairments and low education and having no skill and not having a skilled trade, how can they get a job full time? There are a lot of them out there. Okay. So that's why there's so many aspects to this, and it does depend on your vocational profile, which is your age, your education, and your experience. So that fellow with the limited education and the no skills trade, he would have a, quote, favorable, in the eyes of disability, profile aspect with regard to the education. But remember, there's 3 things: age, education, experience. His experience would be unskilled also. So those 2 things jive well. But his age, it can very much depend on if he's over 50 or under 50. Not particularly my guy with the 1 arm, because that's going to be really hard. And I can't whip through the vocational stuff. I have to give a lot of pondering to that and research. But the vocational profile is super, super important. And the disabilities are super, super important, meaning the impairments. And what I want to drive home is that I have a video on this. I'm going to attach it. Look up here. The need to treat for big and small impairments is really, really important. You want to have as many impairments noted and treated so they're in the current records. I'm not talking about 10 years ago. I'm talking about now. If you had a bad knee 10 years ago and it's still bad, but you don't treat because there's nothing you can do for it, you go back and you follow up for that. That's what I'm talking about. Or a finger that doesn't move. You don't really need it, so it doesn't bother you, but it doesn't move. Get it checked out. Every little thing. There's a video on that, the big and small impairments, and I really think you should watch it if this is confusing at all or it's not getting driven home. That is going to be so imperative to your case, okay? Because all these little things impede some jobs, maybe just a few, but we got to eliminate 12,000. And if that's the thing that's going to eliminate those last 3, if you don't do it, you lose your case, right? So that is my general suggestion oftentimes, okay? Every case is very case by case specific, fact specific. But it is imperative that you do it. And a diagnosis alone is never going to do it. You can have a diagnosis, like I said, from 3 years ago. It's what the current treatment is and how it shows. The treatment records are going to show how functionally limited you may be. It might be a reading between the lines type of, impression that eventually we get the SSA to recognize, or it might be blatantly, clearly noted. It's a little difficult because it depends on how your medical providers, how well they articulate their records. And that is probably one of the hugest challenges we have in this field. But nonetheless, if you're not going out there and getting the treatment, there is not a shot in heck that you can prevail, generally speaking. So you got to do it. And again, those severe impairments, again, they may rise to knocking out old jobs, but a severe impairment won't necessarily, like the fellow with the amputated arm. Okay. All right. I will chat with you guys later. I have some dogs that need to go out. They're barking. I think they want to be fed and then go out. All right. Bye now.